Hello everybody. Today I want to add even more evidence to back my assertion that you should try adding some vehicles to your next big game of BattleTech. Today I want to pull from the 3058 Technical Readout, which is one of my favorites due to the awesome artwork by Dwayne Luce and some really good updates to classic 3025 and 3026 units. Plus, this TRO has the Evan Jaguar in it. But that's a story for another video. Much like the last few vehicle videos, I'm going to highlight a few standouts that I think are worth consideration if you're going to take the leap and implement combined arms in your games of BattleTech. Our first and lightest of the offerings from today is the Badger Tracked Transport. This vehicle is fascinating from the BattleTech lore perspective, as it's one of the earliest examples of omni-vehicle technology in the Inner Sphere. It's no surprise that it's a vehicle commissioned by Wolf's Dragoons, who were, if you weren't already keen on the history, a forward intel gathering operation sent by the clans. As far as Operation Sneaky Sneak goes, Wolf's Dragoons downgraded their weaponry in most cases, though in others there were hints that things were not quite as they seemed, with their famous mercenary company that seemingly came out of nowhere. One of those small hints was the Badger. The Dragoons commissioned the 30-ton tracked transport vehicle in 30-07 from the Blackwell Corporation. The details of that production are largely unknown, though it's obvious that at some point technology was shared that allowed for the implementation of those omnipod structures that would become common following the clan invasion 46 years later. The Badger has 5 tons of pod space available in addition to a dedicated 4-ton infantry compartment. That's pretty good for a 30-ton vehicle with Inner Sphere technology. What historians have been able to discover is that the early production of the Badger was rife with issues until the Dragoons intervened in the process. The extent of that intervention and how much technology was shared is unknown, but we do know that within a year Blackwell was producing not just the Badger at the swift rate, but also had enough production capacity to fill in orders for the company's previously designed Peregrine VTOLs. The Dragoons continually danced on the line of concealing their true origins and using their technological advances to achieve victory. It's quite clear that if Blackwell opened up their books and were willing to talk about the agreement with the Dragoons, we would likely know for sure that the technology was traded in exchange for silence and a ready supply of vehicles and their spare parts. The Badger is a nifty little transport with its 180 Fusion engine that can get it up to a good 97 km per hour at flank speed. Because it has tracks, it's going to be able to go places that other wheeled and even hovercraft cannot. And the 4 tons of space dedicated to infantry transport is decent, and reports from soldiers say it's actually quite a pretty enjoyable experience, unlike riding in most other transports which are cramped and even unventilated. If you've ever ridden in a metro bus in Seattle during rush hour, you'll understand how important it is to breathe fresh air. Where are we? Yes, the Badger. Its most notable use was during the defense of Luthien, where it was able to quickly ferry troops where they were needed, as well as providing fire support as those soldiers embarked. In all the most commonly seen configurations, the Badger has been successful in this role. The primary configuration includes 3 medium lasers and an SRM-2. This is the more balanced of possibilities, as the others tend to specialize in either lasers or missiles. The 3 medium lasers are pretty handy in the medium and short ranges, and that SRM-2 would be quite nifty if loaded with Inferno rounds. Hint hint, wink wink, nudge nudge. The Alt Config A has 4 SRM-2s with 3 in the turret, which is pretty good again for clearing buildings and possibly creating a fiery hellstorm for enemy infantry or battle armor. The Alt Config B has 2 SRM-4s with only 1 in the turret. I'm failing to come up with a reason why you would go with this option instead of the Config A. I suppose it would work if you had SRM-4s laying around and no SRM-2s. It beats throwing dirt clods, I suppose. Just go with the A. Seriously, we could go through the math, but just trust the frog. The Alt Config C carries 2 LRM-5s, 1 in the turret and 1 in the body. The directional limitation from having things mounted in the tank body matters less with the LRMs, but it's still a little silly. I suppose this could be useful if you're dropping your infantry and falling way back out of SRM range, but still want to provide fire support. Alt Config D and E are where things get really interesting. The D setup has 3 medium lasers in the turret and a small laser on each side. I could see this as being quite useful for close range support. It's a decent comparable to that primary configuration if you don't like SRM-2s. The E configuration is for when your driver drinks too much heatsink coolant, pops in some dubstep, and wants to put on a light show. There are 10 small lasers on this Badger, 6 in the turret, and 1 on each side of the tank's body, including the rear. This loadout is just crazy enough to make me think it might be pretty awesome in a close range fight. All things considered, the Badger is a neat little transport vehicle that has an interesting connection to the BattleTech timeline. Give it a try, see how it performs. Just don't use the B config, please. Since we're already talking about transports, the next vehicle I want to highlight is the Maxim Heavy Hover Transport. This 50-ton hovercraft design shares just a couple of similarities with the Badger, as their roles are different and the Maxim reflects the reliance on inner sphere technology. It is constructed around a 165 internal combustion engine rather than a fusion engine, which keeps costs down. Thankfully, it doesn't sacrifice much in the speed department as a result. The medium hovercraft can still hit a flank speed of 130 kilometers per hour, which is pretty great for a heavy machine. That speed, when added to the impressive mixture of weapon systems, led to the Maxim's reputation for survivability. The 3058 technical readout loadout includes an SRM-6 and 2 machine guns in the turret, along with target acquisition gear. A Streak SRM-2 is placed on both the left and the right side of the vehicle, and at the front. Finally, at the front of the vehicle are a couple of LRM-5s. It's a bit of an everything burger, but I don't think you can deny it would be nice to be an infantryman backed up by a Maxim that can lay down a pretty considerable amount of fire in any direction. The addition of the tag allows the Maxim to be an excellent spotter for LRMs or Arrow 4 fire support, so that's pretty awesome as well. Reports from the battle against the Smoke Jaguars on Luthien included successful use of the Maxim against armored infantry and even clan mechs that were deployed in attempts to get behind enemy lines and cause havoc. The Maxims were able to respond quickly and lay down fire at both close and long ranges thanks to their weapons loadouts. Even spread out, the Maxims could back each other up with LRM fire, while their speed allowed for rapid reinforcement. There is a fire support variant mentioned in the TRO that replaces the SRM launchers and the tag with an LRM-15 in the turret. That, combined with the 2 existing LRM-5s, provides an okay LRM boat, but nothing that couldn't be better done with other vehicles. There's also an anti-personnel variant that swaps the Streak SRMs for machine guns, though I'm wary of the effectiveness of this in anything other than a purely financial move. As a medium hovercraft, the Maxim is solid. As a troop transport, it's okay with only 3 tons dedicated to holding infantry. I'm really curious if any of you have used a Maxim to great effect. It strikes me as a vehicle with a high likelihood of impacting the outcome of a battle. I understand that's a little bit like saying, I hope you get everything you deserve. It could be the nicest thing you can say, or the most brutal and cutting. I'll leave it up to your interpretation. Any claims that I chose the next vehicle simply based upon its name are baseless, and you're lucky that dueling has been illegal in this country for 200 years. Anyway, the Centipede Scout Car is a great vehicle if you're looking for something just slightly more useful than the Savannah Master and just annoying enough to remind everybody why they hate fighting Savannah Masters. This 20-ton Scout Car is actually a hovercraft that can hit a speed of 130 kilometers per hour and is equipped with a medium laser, a flamer, and a Beagle active probe. A joint venture between Gaina Combat Vehicles and Red Devil Industries, the Centipede was originally designed as an updated version of the Skulker Scout vehicle line. When the Ghost Bears took the planet Al-Shane, those plans needed to be adapted as a production line for Gaina Combat Vehicles was located there. Through various iterations, the design diverged so much from the original Skulker that it became obvious it was going to be its own independent vehicle, hence the name change. Production began in 3053 and deployment within FedCom units started by the beginning of the next year. As a scout vehicle, the Centipede excelled even though there was some concern with the limitations of hovercraft on rough ground. In the Free Worlds League raid on Safe, Centipedes were used to great effect, providing coordinates for artillery and spotting troop concentrations with that Beagle active probe. Continually, House Merrick units would set up for an offensive and then realize that the FedCom forces were prepared for them. With the help of the Centipedes, the Free Worlds League forces were delayed and harassed to the point where they were forced to withdraw from the planet when FedCom reinforcements arrived. In the years since their successful deployment, the Centipede has become ubiquitous among the FedCom armed forces. If you're looking for a light and fast spotter vehicle, I'd say give the Centipede a try, especially if your local gaming group has already banned the Savannah Master. Our next vehicle deserving some limelight is the Hunter Light Support Tank. This 35-ton tracked vehicle isn't going to win any speed records at its 65 km/h flank speed. However, its role as a fire support vehicle is boosted thanks to its 3050's upgrades. The Hunter is an older design, but with demand for new vehicles far outstripping supply in the early 3050s due to the clan invasion, Defiance Industries was quick to act by upgrading their existing line to compete for contracts. The result was a comparatively cheap fire support tank that could be deployed solo or as part of a unit to reliably deliver LRMs onto targets. Simple, right? The effectiveness is baked into a very clearly defined goal and execution. Armed with 2 LRM-15s, each with Artemis 4 fire control systems, the light tank can dish out a considerable amount of damage. It's no LRM carrier concerning the number of missiles, but with a battle value of 648, one could make a case for rolling the dice on it. The Hunter has been so successful that it's been licensed out for manufacture with 3 other companies that can be found in frontline units, planetary militias, and anyone who needs to add an inexpensive fire support unit to their army. There are a few other variants to the Hunter, including a strange AC-20 version with 3 tons of ammo, but most are extremely rare. The most interesting alt version I've seen removes one of the LRM-15s and replaces it with a large pulse laser. While this does take advantage of the heat sinks in the Fusion engine, it creates a vehicle which really isn't very good at direct fire and also not very good at fire support, so I would give that a pass. One last vehicle I'd like to highlight from the 3058 technical readout is one that's often cheered from a previous technical readout. The upgrade it received was a little contentious, but I want to see if I can make the argument for taking it for your next game. Plus, it's just really fun to say, "The Manticore!" in a dramatic fashion. The original Manticore was 60 tons of mixed weaponry with a solid reputation as a brawler, largely due to its plentiful armor and ability to do significant amount of damage at all ranges. Its widespread use and solid reputation has kept the Manticore around throughout the centuries. The 3055 upgrade, as shown in the 3058 TRO, was an attempt to use Lost Tech to boost the Manticore and make it even more potent. The old school PPC was replaced with a large pulse laser, the LRM and SRM systems were each given Artemis fire control systems, and the medium laser was replaced with a Streak SRM-2. All of the weapons except for the Streak SRM-2 are in the turret, which is pretty ideal for a tank. The upgraded Manticore still moves at a decent clip thanks to the 240 Fusion engine, and 10 tons of ferrofibrous armor will keep the tank in the fight for long enough to give as good as it gets. Giving up the range of the PPC for the accuracy of the large pulse laser is one that I've heard debated. I think it boils down to how you plan on using the tank in the field. If you're using it as a mid-range brawler, the large pulse laser is going to do well for you. If you want to use the Manticore as more of a fire support vehicle, the PPC is going to be better. The way I see it, in the metrics that matter, the 3055 upgrade is still solid. Cue angry YouTube comments below. Honestly, I could have picked 4 or 5 other vehicles from the 3058 technical readout to highlight in this video. There's so many good options. This TRO is awesome for vehicles and for VTOLs. Let's just hope we start seeing a lot of these models in plastic from Catalyst Game Labs soon. If I didn't include a vehicle that you think should have made it into the video, let me know. If I picked one that you've used to great effect on the tabletop, I'd love to hear that as well. At the very least, it'll help us pass the time as we count down the days until the Kickstarter. Big thanks for hitting all the buttons if you enjoyed the video. Thank you to the Ko-Fi supporters who are making this possible. Until I see you again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.